James Lynch here for Sherdog.com, here with Ant Walker, also from Sherdog.com, and this is the Bellator 214 post-fight show, and what an event we just had. We'll start first in the main event. Obviously, Ryan Bader getting a highlight reel finish over Fedor Emelianenko in the main event. Just a simple question, Ant. Did you expect the fight to end that quickly?
I didn't expect it to end that quickly. I definitely didn't think it would go into the second round, but I was more surprised that it ended standing. I thought that Bader would take Fedor down, apply his dominance there, similar to how he did with Matt Mitrione, except this time actually get the finish. So that was more the shock, that he hit Fedor with I think it was a long left hook that dropped him. If anything, you would have thought Fedor would have had the standing KO, but, so that's what happened.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. When I saw Ryan standing with him initially, I'm like, I don't know if this is such a good idea. And sure enough, the second later, he knocks him out. Where do you feel like this win puts Ryan in the scope of just MMA in general? I mean, people say Bellator's, it doesn't have the competition, but I mean, quite the feat being the heavyweight and light heavyweight champion now.
I mean, Bader deserves his respect. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to achieve the level of respect that he desired in the UFC, despite having a pretty good resume there. He honestly wasn't afforded some of the opportunities that Bellator has afforded him. I mean, keep in mind, this was the same guy who was calling out Daniel Cormier and, had what typically gets you a title shot while he was on a winning streak. And it just didn't fall in his favor. So it's good to see him actually be able to have such a high-profile fight, come out on top. I mean, we saw about 30 pounds worth of gold sitting on this podium just a few moments ago. And Ryan Bader never would have achieved that in the UFC, not necessarily because of the competition, but more so the opportunities.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And that's sort of my next question. What do you feel like should be next for Bader? Would you like to see him fight that winner of the rematch between Kongo and Minikov, or does he go back down to light heavyweight and try his hand there defending that belt? What would you like to see?
I honestly would prefer him to stay at heavyweight. I think light heavyweight overall is a very, very thin division, and Bellator, it's extraordinarily thin. Heavyweight seems to be the better move. There are some more notable names there. And I think at least with his last fight on the contract, I think if he defends that heavyweight belt, he's already defended the light heavyweight belt. So he, in essence, will be ironically, in the same position that Daniel Cormier was in when he won the heavyweight title. So it'd be nice to see that come full circle, and for him to be able to accomplish that so close to the end of his contract. Who knows? Maybe we'll see him make a return to the UFC. Maybe we'll see him stay in Bellator and solidify himself even further. But if you're saying the name Ryan Bader and you're not talking pound for pound list, you're probably having the wrong conversation at this point.
And in the co-main event, Henry Corrales, he's been sort of the underdog story in Bellator, coming out there and getting a finish over Aaron Pico. We know Pico's a young guy, composed himself very well, especially coming out here and speaking to the media after the fight, but Henry Corrales has got to get this next title shot, right?
Yes. You kind of think, like, who else is going to be put there? Apparently Pitbull brothers are barking at Michael Chandler, and, Chandler's wanting to go to 145. And so we're hearing this, but Henry Corrales has proven all he's really needed to prove. He took everything that Aaron Pico had to offer, and he gave him something more. Also, another guy who we'll definitely talk about this with Pico, but Henry Corrales being a class act as well, somebody who's been very respectful. He's been surging since he's joined the MMA lab with Benson Henderson and John Crouch in Arizona. I really just don't see how you don't give him that shot. Yeah. And this in such a big stage as well. This was a co-main event spot in a huge market, his hometown, by the way, on a card that Fedor Emelianenko headlined. I'm sorry, I don't think the stakes get any bigger than that for a guy like Henry Corrales who struggled, when he first became part of the roster and has been able to turn it around so nicely.
And then for Pico, he said it at the press conference, and credit to Brett Okamoto for asking this, but you could tell he got a little angry when he's like, when he's saying, I'm not just going to fight the 4-1 guy on the undercard. I want a good competition, but they have to be smart about this, obviously. I think a veteran like a Pat Curran, someone like that that's, had some time off, I think would be a good next opponent for him. Someone that, he would be competitive against, but also there isn't that threat of him getting finished. But I think in general, they got to be careful who they match up Pico with next, not giving him lower level competition, but obviously giving him someone that's noteworthy. What do you think?
I agree. I asked him also about taking a lower profile fight, and he kind of scoffed at the idea, not rudely at all, but he just didn't really find himself very fond of that idea. But but this is kind of what you want from someone who has such great ambitions in a sport so brutal as mixed martial arts. You have to be a killer. You've got to have the killer instinct. You've got to have a level of ambition that sets you apart from the average guy walking the street. And Pico has that. The thing is that it's got to be the people that are behind him, that are around him, that are in charge of making some of these decisions, and that are advising him to dial it back a little bit. Pico is the sort of the competitor. The way he strikes me is the type of competitor that no matter who you put in front of him, he's going to give it his all, and he's going to do everything he feels like he has to do. So, knowing that, like, yes, if you put him up against the 4-1 guy or 4-2 guy, that the exact same record is that he probably will damn near murder that poor soul, but. Pico has proven himself to be a competitor to the point that you gotta rein him in just a little bit. I mean, I think the fight was almost symbolic of how his career trajectory has been so far. You come out with a full hit of steam. It's hype. All the lights are bright. He lands very, very nice clinch strikes to drop Corrales. And then because of that youthful enthusiasm, all that piss and vinegar, he's going at it, and that gets him clipped in the long run, and it takes him out. I mean, I think it's time to dial back on how hard and how far they're trying to push Pico and let him develop. He's only 22 years old.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. Lots of time to develop there for Pico. Just like you said, 22 years old. Former WWE star Jake Hager, a.k.a. Jack Swagger, made good on his debut, getting a quick finish over J.W. Kaiser. This is the best-case scenario for Bellator. They get a highlight reel finish with a former professional wrestler. For me personally, I'd like to see him continue on this sort of run of opponents, and then when you see him more comfortable in the cage, then you give him that step up. But what did you think?
I agree. There's no reason to throw Jake Hager. That's his real name, right? Jake Hager, I almost called him Jack Swagger. Yeah. To see Hager in with a Minikov or Congo or something like that, we don't need to see that, and that would not bode very well for him. At 36 years old as well, this is not. He shouldn't be jumping in the deep end so soon. J.W. Kaiser, to his credit, being a guy who otherwise was an unknown journeyman and being able to make the walk in a big market, kudos to him. But we know the level of competition that was. What happened with Jake Hager is the best case scenario for an highlight reel. But if you're talking about a career that is going to find itself in a championship reign, it's probably not going to. It's not telling us much. So let's see some more. Let's see some guys step up from J.W. Kaiser. We can I'm sure they can find plenty of guys to fit that bill, and let's see what he does. And maybe with a little luck, he stays healthy, we could see something happen.
Speaking of seeing something happen, Juan Archuleta step up in competition against Ricky Mendez, goes out there and gets a decision. Now, this is a close fight, and some people felt like it could have gone either way. What was your scorecard? How did you score that one?
I had a 29-28 for Archuleta. I thought, I wasn't too surprised that there were some scorecards going the other way. I'm not mad at that, but I thought that Archuleta won the first and the third round. The second round seemed kind of debatable to me, but it was close enough. Those first two rounds were definitely close enough to where you really could go either way depending on what you were favoring. But I think the judges got it right.
And he's talking about going up to 55, 45. I say slow down the brakes here. They got to do that rematch between Horiguchi and Caldwell, Darian Caldwell, the Bellator champion. But I think I'd like to see him fight next at bantamweight because that division's lost a lot of steam over the last year. Michael McDonald retiring, Eduardo Dantas losing. They need to create more momentum in that division, and I think Archuleta did that on a big card tonight.
Yeah, agreed. And then also with Caldwell losing to Horiguchi, that does the division a little disservice. Right. Of course, Horiguchi is going to be able to give him another shot. But still, you've kind of lost a little luster on that belt. Let Archuleta stay at bantamweight. Let him continue to make noise there, and I think it'll be undeniable that he should be getting a title shot.
And speaking of making noise, AJ Asagaram, the jiu-jitsu sensation, losing tonight in his debut. It just seemed like he was in for a tough night. What do you do with him going forward? You must, I would assume, just give him the same level of competition and hope it goes better the next time.
You've got to give him a lower level of competition.
Yeah.
You pump the brakes really hard. There was, unlike some of the other guys who have debuted in mixed martial arts with backgrounds in jiu-jitsu or wrestling or boxing, whatever individual disciplines they came from, there wasn't really much to like about what he did tonight. I mean, it took him very long to get a lot of those takedowns. He was able to get them down a couple times, but it was too little too late, not being able to sink in submissions. Then literally no sort of striking skill was displayed. Jesse Roberts pieced him up at will, and for him to respond with oddly placed taunting, and there was honestly nothing to like about that performance. And maybe he can right the ship. It's still young guy, young in his career, obviously, being his first professional fight, but there was just not a lot to like there.
But this card, there was a lot to like. We mentioned the finishes. This was a great event, and just a lot of things to sort of take away from this. I am James Lynch, Ant Walker here. Ant, just remind the people where they can get a hold of you and anything you got coming up for Sherdog.
You can find me on Twitter at Ant Walker MMA. So that's also my Instagram. I barely ever post anything, but try it anyway. Check out the Trenches, the live chat for Sherdog.com. That airs on Thursdays at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. But this week, the UFC 235 press conference will be going on. I think that's supposed to be going on right at the same time. So we're going to go live right after that this week instead.
That's called a lead-in, I think, right? As they say in the business. You can follow me on Twitter at Lynch on Sports. Check out all my interviews on Sherdog.com. Got a whole bunch coming out in the next little bit, so keep your eyes out for that. I am James Lynch. He is Ant Walker. Thanks for watching.